In the high-tech digital age of the compact disc, you may be tempted to consign your once-loved collection of gramophone records to the bin. But before you say goodbye to your vinyl cast-offs, do be careful. As Fiona Pethick reports, some of those old albums and 45s could turn out to be gold discs.
The Beatles, Please Please Be, 1963. Cost 35 shillings. Gold label, stereo edition, now worth £1,000.
Well, it's a 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready. Now go, 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 but don't you...
And they did go, in their thousands, to the Brighton Record Fair. Some were looking for a bargain, some were looking for their favourite artist, some were looking for investment potential. One, at least, was looking for all three.
I've got a couple of soundtracks in here and some Cyril Stapleton and a show called Zorba.
So how much was that?
Oh, that's £3 and the other one was a couple of pounds, so I haven't spent very much yet.
But would you be able to buy that elsewhere for the same price?
No, it's quite an unusual one, this. I tend to look for the unusual shows. I mean, you can buy a copy of The Sound of Music anywhere for 50 pence, but shows like this are American and they're a bit of a job to find.
So why do you collect these sort of records?
Well, to add to my collection already, which is about 4,000 strong.
But do you do it as an investment, or...?
I've often been asked this, but at the moment it's for my own pleasure, but I'm thinking ahead a little bit to when I retire, then I might well use my collection as an investment and resell them at a later date.
Money, 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 money.
And there is money to be made in the rare record business, but it's not worth gambling your future. Brighton has at least 9 record fairs this year, and they're a good place to begin to know the market. But a wise investor doesn't rely on just one source of information. This magazine is generally regarded as the definitive guide to record collecting. Over 70 pages of small ads give a lead to prevailing prices, and occasionally the price of a round piece of plastic can be staggering.
Well, Elvis was 18 in 1953. He went along to the Sun recording studio, paid his $3.99, recorded 2 songs on an acetate, came home with it, played it to his mother, gave it to her as a present. Now that record is worth $500,000.
Much more modest sums are offered in Brighton's tin pan alleys. £10 to £20 is more the mark. Specialist shops like these tend to give themselves funny, punny names, but they are another source of sound advice.
Most record dealers will value 1 or 2, 3, 4 records over the phone in course of their work. But if you want your entire record collection valued, then you have to ask the dealer if he's prepared to do it, find out what his rate is. I personally charge £10 an hour to value a record collection. This can be used for personal use or for insurance purposes, or as a guide if they wish to sell to somebody else other than the dealer that has valued them.
Get out those old records, those old phonograph records, the ones we used to play so long ago.
It's generally thought that 78s are a valuable collector's item. Well, by all means, collect them if you like listening to them. But as a money-making investment...
78s. Well, I run record fairs, and there are 600 record fairs throughout the year, and only 2 of them specialise in 78s. One at Fairfield Hall, Croydon, and the other one at Wimbledon. And there, to a minor degree, you very rarely find a 78 over 50 pence. And even if you had a room this size full of 78s, you still wouldn't find one that's of great value.
Phillips Auction House is where the really valuable records are up for sale. It's big business, more than £100,000 a year. Andrew Milton was appointed especially to look after the rock and pop collection. He's the expert's expert.
The Beatles, Please Please Me, came out in 1963. Very early stereo edition, this one. Came out on a special label, which was only available for a matter of weeks in the early 60s before they changed it. Gold lettering, first edition stereo, sold about 250 copies, worth £1,000 now. So a good investment.
Any others?
This one, not a very rare record, got the advantage it's being signed, genuine signatures. about £800 for something that would have been free.
30 years on, Beatlemania is still alive. Now it's the Japanese who are buying up the Beatles at almost any price. Still, there are others for whom the Japanese haven't yet developed a yen. Some years ago, Valerie lost her heart to Elvis. She wears it on more than her sleeve.
Love me tender.
She's not in the same league as the high-spending Japanese. Even so, the collecting bug has bit deep.
There's a shop in Shoreditch, and it's called Elsie Yours, and it's absolutely fantastic in there. An Elvis fan just can't resist in there, and I went in with £60 the very first time it was open, and I spent the lot, absolutely the lot.
Valerie's not half-hearted in proclaiming allegiance to the king, and when it comes to record collecting, she may well have made a wise long-term investment. For once, all the experts agree.
Well, it's the big names, Beatles, Stones, Elvis, Cliff. Not every record that they've made, but the very rare ones do fetch a lot of money, the ones that are quite obscure, that were only pressed in very limited quantities at the time.
Elvis, the Stones, major artists that have track records.
I don't think Kylie Minogue is going to be a very collectible in a few years. People who have such a short lifespan in the charts don't tend to be collectible. It's people who have made an impact on the music. People from the 60s like the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, Elvis Presley have all contributed and influenced musicians today, are collectible now.
And the experts agree on one other thing too.
It's quite possible actually that someone at home is sitting on a small gold mine. They don't realise what sort of records they've got in their collection, and if they're 20 or 30 years old, it's quite likely that they've got something of particular interest to collectors.
Hang on a minute. Before you dive into the attic, there's one big snag. They all have to be in absolute mint condition. Shame that. Well, that's all from Moneywise for tonight. Next week, to tip or not to tip, why the British way of adding extras to the bill is under attack, and who pays the poll tax in your house, how the community charge will affect landlords, tenants, nannies, and lodgers. Those are some of the stories we'll be looking at in next week's Moneywise. Until then, good night.